So as a sideman, it's up to you to really service the music and
Right.
I've
Serving the
had
music, yeah.
serving the music. And one thing that I've learned about being a sideman is that if you're not playing your own music with people that you hired, with people that you have in mind playing your own tunes, if you're not doing that, you're working.
Welcome to Keep Taking Ground, the Saxophone podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ryan, and today's guest has been called a dynamic musician from the multi-Grammy award-winning bassist, Christian McBride. He's earned a Bachelor of Music from the prestigious Manhattan School of Music in New York, and he's also earned a Master's in Jazz Studies from the University of Southern California's Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz. He has had an amazing career as a leader, as well as playing with some of the likes of Christian McBride, Eric Reed, Mulgrew Miller, John Faddis, Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Yolanda Adams, Israel Horton, and check this out, Michael Bublé, Ariana Grande, Tori Kelly, Tony Braxton, and the list goes on. It's really my pleasure to welcome Mr. Tim Green. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Doing good, Jesse. It's a pleasure to be here, man. I'm really looking forward to this conversation and getting into some cool information here. It's going to be great.
Yeah, man. It's I remember when I was back home in Trinidad, there was a period of time where I did my first year at Berkeley, and I was back home for 3 years trying to figure out if I was going to go back to Berkeley, if I was going to move to New York, just trying to figure where I was going to move on to really pursue a career in music. And that period of time, I think that's when I discovered you, and it was on an album from Israel Horton, and you took a solo on a track, and I still remember that solo right now. I was like, man, so good.
Wow.
And yeah, since then I've been following your career. You've definitely been a huge influence on my sound, my approach to playing, and even my writing, because I've checked out your writing a fair bit, use of harmony and just sort of like some things like that. So you've really been one of my personal heroes, and it's been a pleasure to observe you, and a pleasure to be chatting with you today, really. I really believe that there's a gap in between the award-winning in-demand saxophone player and the aspiring professional saxophone player. And so these conversations on this podcast are geared towards really me being curious about how to close that gap. And that gap isn't always closed by, let's say, pursuing a degree in music or just by time or just by practicing. I believe that the in-demand award-winning saxophone player knows something that the rest of us don't know. And so I'm excited to discuss that with you today. And let's begin at the beginning. How did you begin playing the saxophone?
Let's see. Well, I started playing saxophone when I was, what is the grade you're in? Well, in 5th grade, I went to a band camp.
Okay.
And my brother played the trumpet, and he used to go to a band camp during the summer.
Okay.
And anyway, I followed him to the band camp, and as you do with your big brothers and everything like that, your older siblings.
Yeah.
So I went to the band camp and just kind of see what was going on. I wanted to play the drums, and band instructor said, "Look, there's enough drummers here. You're gonna play the saxophone." And so there was one case that was in this room, and it was this green case. It looked like a suitcase, and I was like, "Please don't give me this case. I don't want to carry this case around." And sure enough, she gave me that horn. I remember the case to this day. It was like a green suitcase, and it was an alto saxophone in there. And anyway, I took the horn home and just started practicing my scales. For some reason, I just did everything that my band instructor told me to do. Her name is Miss Betty McLeod. She just retired like a couple of years ago, actually. From teaching in middle school. But anyway, and she just started to teach us scales and teaches how to read music. You know, every good boy does fine, and
Yeah,
FH
yeah,
and
yeah,
all that stuff. And for
yeah.
some reason, I just paid attention. You know,
Yeah.
I sat there. She said, "Go home and practice this scale. Here's the fingering." I went home and practiced it. Said, "Okay, this is the next scale. Here it is." I went home and practiced it, and we went so forth and so on. And
Yeah.
everything she basically told me to do, and in middle school, I just would do it,
Yeah.
and just started just practicing it, you know, kind of taking it serious. And
Shout out to all the middle school
yeah, the
and
middle school
secondary school
teachers,
teachers. Yeah, yeah,
yes, it's super
yeah.
duper important. That's something I actually don't get a chance to talk about a lot, but yeah,
Hmm.
that's my teacher. If she didn't do a middle school band camp, then I probably wouldn't have this be playing alto saxophone right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I started. That's where I started in middle school.
Cool.
And it's better in the cloud. Yeah.
Cool.
And I kind of went on from there. After that point, I auditioned for the Baltimore School for the Arts
Okay.
for high school. I did the Twigs program, which is a like a pre-high school program to kind
Okay.
of like graduate you into into the high school program. So I did that my 8th grade year, and I
Okay.
got into the Baltimore School for the Arts, where I studied with Dr. Chris Ford
Okay.
and also Mr. David Stambler. And they had a huge emphasis on, you know, classical music there. So as I was kind of learning jazz, I was also had a big foundation in classical music, you know, all the French classical,
Yeah.
you know, sonatas and etudes and all the concertos and different things like that. I was shedding Charlie Parker Harmony book, and I was also, you know, shedding the Boza, you know, a lot of
Nice.
concerto, or shedding, you know, whatever other pieces there were to shed and outside of those books. So I was doing that at the same time, which is a part of the tradition of, I guess, alto saxophone playing
Yeah. Yeah.
that we all come out of with Bird, you know,
Mm-hmm.
shedding, you know, all the French classical stuff on top of the blues. So
Yeah.
I didn't know that I was getting a proper, you know, education at the time in terms of playing the alto.
Right.
But you know, my teachers were really in tune with what I needed to learn, and really took me to task on, you know, being a good technical saxophonist, as well
Yeah.
as learning you know, jazz as well. So that was my beginning. Yeah.
Let's talk about what you began to pursue after having those experiences at the at the Manhattan School and at the Monk School. What are you in pursuit of? What have you been in pursuit of, and what do you define as like the goal for the professional saxophone player? At least how you defined it for yourself.
Um, Professional saxophone player. Wow, there's so much that goes into that.
Yeah.
My pursuit. I've been in pursuit of being a great musician. You know,
Yeah.
for the most part, I just been
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be a musician that happens to play the saxophone. Great musician that happens to play the saxophone.
Yeah.
Which means learn how to play melodies well, learn how to fit in different environments musically,
Mm-hmm.
also learn how to play with dynamics, learn how to play with an amount of elegance, learn how to play
Mm.
with a certain amount of beauty, learn how to play quiet, play soft, but all playing with a certain type of truth and understanding within the melody at the same time. So
Yeah.
my pursuit has been to be a great musician. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been through the process of, you know, playing fast. I've been through the process of trying to play through all Coltrane changes as fast as I can, trying to play through all the most modern music that I can. I'm still working on that as much as possible. But at
Yeah.
this point, I just want to be a great musician. And that encompasses everything. You know what I mean? If you sit down and talk to Wayne Shorter, if you talk to whoever, Steve Coleman, Greg Osby, all of those guys, even Kenny Garrett, that's their
Yeah.
pursuit. I ran into Kenny at a jazz festival. We in Israel years ago at this the Lot Jazz Festival,
Mm-hmm.
and we hooked up. And he's like, you know, you got a lot of time to kind of hang out. You know how it is, and everybody's in some remote village somewhere
Yeah.
waiting for a jazz fest that they're going to pop up in the middle of a, you know, some village square or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So we out this place, and I see him. He's like, yeah, man, you know, come down to the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's share it. So I'm like, wow,
That's
it's about
amazing, man.
yeah, it's about to be. You know, we're about to go down there, you know, shed, you know, John steps, you know, he's about to, you know, he's about, and next thing
The
you know,
Holy
I get,
Grail.
yeah, the Holy Grail. So I get to his room, and he's down there shedding the Improv at Caprice, that Boza classical piece, the beginning part, which is opening, just like supposed to sound pretty improvisatory.
Yeah.
And then the second part, which is this fast,
Mm-hmm.
this fast traumatic thing. So he's just sitting there. He's just sitting there trying to figure out the fingerings, man, and like trying to figure out the best way to play these melodies, trying to figure out the best way to play these fingerings. And he's sitting there asking me questions. I'm like, come on, you need to call your buddies Branford
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here just taking a lesson by watching you shed. And, so that was a big lesson for me. I'm like, he's not down there shedding, he's not down there going crazy. This guy's by himself trying to figure out how to play these melodies and trying to be a great musician, period.
Wow.
So once he finishes learning how to do that, then he can get on stage and go into his thing. That was so that was a big lesson for me, man. It was like, okay, let's deal with the saxophone. Everything else from there, you'll be fine.
Wow.
But just deal with the saxophone. That's one of my first lessons when I have students, man. I just, I kind of put them through the can you play saxophone test first.
Right.
We can get through that, then we can move on to other stuff. But you got to learn how to play, play long tones and play with some type of articulation and understand what goes into playing the instrument before.
Yeah. There's one thing that you mentioned that stood out to me, because I feel like it has become part of your DNA and the DNA of your label, the True Melody Music label that you launched a couple of years ago when you released your first record as a leader. The idea of playing melodies well. I feel like if that's something that you're really known for, at least one of the things that stands out to me in your playing. Can you talk a little bit about that a little more?
Yeah. Let me see. I've one of my mentors, great Margaret Miller, who's of course no longer here with us. When I met him at the Monk Institute, and he was talking about, he's like, look, man, you gotta get your sound together. You gotta learn how to play these melodies right.
Yeah.
And that always kind of stuck with me. I was like, man, I gotta get this together. And basically the concept behind it is that, man, no matter if you're playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or you're playing, I don't know, man, playing Confirmation or playing John Steps.
Yeah.
These melodies have to be from a true place, and they have to they command a certain amount of depth out of you that reaches people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're not playing in any type of truth or in any way that you're embracing these melodies, it's not going to reach anybody else if it's not coming from you in a true place to begin with. So that's a big part of it. You know what I mean? All the melodies and when I was writing music, I was like, how can I call it? Like, man, it's just true melodies. It's just melodies that are coming from me. There's no lie about it. This is the true moments that I'm sitting down at my piano, coming up with and coming from out of a true place for me, whether it's attached to a story, a person, no matter what it is, but it's coming from a true place. And that creates a certain amount of depth that you play with as well. You know what I mean? It's just like playing ballads. Like you don't play a ballad if you don't know the lyrics. You know what I mean? It's not. There's going to be no depth there. There's going to be no truth there. You have no idea what you're playing. You're just playing notes. You don't know what this is about. You know what I mean? You played a ballad last night. Cyrus, we've been playing a couple of weeks with a couple of days with Cyrus Chestnut's group.
Yeah.
And he's picking ballads that are in tune with the times that we're in. So we've been playing a ballad, We'll Be Together Again, right? So I'm like, okay, that has so much meaning to this moment. There's a truth to the ballads and the music that we're playing. Everything should be lived in a certain amount of truth and have some concept of what is going on. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So, so that's my concept behind it,
That's good, man. I remember watching a video once where Christian McBride was talking about you, and he mentioned really that he saw you as like a really consummate musician, and he was really commending you for your work as a sideman and what you bring to any project that you are a part of. Can we talk a little bit about your work as a sideman?
Okay, sure.
And just like how is it different? Are your intentions different, or the things that you are in pursuit of, is it different when you're a sideman as opposed to when you're a leader? And just the whole experience of being a sideman.
Yeah, wow, being a sideman, that's so many different worlds I've been in. First thing when it comes to being a sideman is understanding that, of course, you're playing somebody else's music, but in the bigger scheme of it, it is just the music. You know what I mean? And it's coming from the big bubble of music,
Right.
right? And you have to understand how to be a servant of the music and understand
Mm-hmm.
what this person's music calls for. And it's really not, it is about the person in a way,
Right.
but it's also about the music. So it also takes out some of the ego when you're working with great musicians. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I'll
Yeah.
give you a situation. I had a chance to play with some great musical directors, man. You know what I mean? Whether I'm uh, playing on a TV show, I've had a chance to play with Adam Blackstone,
Mm-hmm.
play with Ricky Minor, and
Yeah,
also
man.
Alan Chang, who was a musical director for Michael Bublé.
Yeah.
So when you're in a situation with great musical directors, you know, you always have a lot of different suggestions, right?
Yeah.
And you know, maybe it's a chart that you got a big band chart, or somebody wants to take the bridge here, or somebody
Mm-hmm.
wants to cut out the pre-chorus here, or somebody wants to, you know, is it a 4-bar intro or do we want a 2-bar intro? Whatever the
Right.
case may be. And then you got 30 musicians in a room, right? And the musical director is the person that hears the music the best. It's almost like they have like a direct download from
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
God and the music, and they're able to come up with the best solution
Right.
about what the music is saying.
Right.
And when that person gives that suggestion, you might have one or two people that might be kind of like, you know, I don't know about that. But once we play it, you know, we cut off this bar, this intro. It's like, okay, that's what the music is saying, and
That's it. Yeah.
that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no questions about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as a sideman, it's up to you to really service the music, and
Right.
I've
Serving the
had
music. Yeah.
serving the music. And one thing that I've learned about being a sideman is that if you're not playing your own music with people that you hired, with people that you have in mind playing your own tunes, if you're not doing that, you're working. So, so you need to
Yeah.
be treating it as if it's a job. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm.
a part of that job is learning what certain band leaders value about
Mm.
their gigs and about their music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you were talking about McBride. I got to find that interview you were talking about too, with McBride. That's huge coming from him.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I haven't seen that. No,
Wow. Okay.
I have not seen that. I have not seen that. That's
Yeah.
huge. But so say for instance, about like Christian McBride, great bassist that we all know and love.
Mm-hmm.
His music sounds fun to the ears, and it is fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
But all of his music is in bass keys. His, you know, the Shade of the Cedar Tree, that's in E.
Yeah.
Youthful Bliss, that's in the key of A.
Yeah.
He has another slow blues that's in D,
Yeah.
right? EADG. I mean, he has another, I don't know if he has the blues in G, but all of his, and then he plays Theme for Kareem, which is the blues in D flat, right?
Okay.
So all of these songs are catered around him. So
Right.
when he gets in this situation with his band, he is going to be comfortable. So this ain't no work for him. This is him right at home. He's in right
Yeah.
in all these keys that he wants to be on, that he can't be in those keys when he's playing with saxophone players. He
Right.
want to play in B flat, he want to play in F.
Yeah.
We might want to play in E flat, something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I remember him telling the story about him doing gigs with Jesse Davis, you know, back in the day when Bradley's and stuff was together. And, you know, alto players, we want to get up and play Cherokee at lightning speed. And
Yeah.
bass players don't want to play that. You know what I mean? So anyway, on his gig, you have to be prepared to play in those keys,
Mm-hmm.
and also understand that he values the blues, and that's what his music is calling for, is the blues. All music kind of calls for the blues, but his music and his influences are James Brown and Ray Brown. So you need to understand that those two legends, they require you to play the blues. And as long as you're playing the blues and you're playing the melodies right and playing the changes right, and you know, a great person, you're gonna be all right playing Christian's music.
Yeah.
So that's one instance.
That's so important. Learning what your band leader values.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
making sure that you're delivering on that.
Yeah. Some cats might feel like, all right, man, like I've been through, you know, look, I tried every alto play I can try, and I found a cat that, man, he's on time every time. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to worry about this cat coming late.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about him showing up, high to the, I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean? They
Right,
just
right.
have tried so many cats, and look, man, this guy's there on time every time. He might not be the baddest cat, but he's on time.
Mm-hmm.
He learns all my music, and I'm just tired of dealing with all these cats that's just bad, but they just not on time. They late for sound check. We
Yeah.
say the lobby call is at 5:30. And this cat is getting down to the lobby and going to get a coffee at 5:30. No, the lobby comes at 5:30. Don't
Yeah.
get your coffee at 5. We are
Yeah.
leaving at 5:30. Different
Yeah.
things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're working with cats that.
I guess that's on the professional side
Professional
of
side.
the
Yes.
music. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. And you don't want to be that one cat that's just holding up you don't want to be. I mean, everybody's going to have that day here and there. Some honest mistake might happen. But you don't want that to be an MO. You don't want to be the cat that's holding up the van. We got to get to the airport, man. It's the last day on tour. Don't hang out tonight.
Right.
I mean, we're gonna hang out. We're gonna go and hang. Okay, cool. But let's be there, man. Let's be at this bus at 4:30. Andre Guess, who used to manage Lincoln Center. They used to call it the Great Big Leave. Like when everybody left, man, everybody was gone. And you found your way. So anyway. There's certain things like that. So I don't know. So much more I can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like even in the music too. I get a sense that you talked about Christian valuing the Christian McBride valuing the blues, and you can hear that in his music. I'm getting a sense that you don't necessarily need to have a conversation with the band leader, but just by listening to their music, you get a sense of what they value both professionally and musically, and try to bring that to the table.
Yeah, you have to do your research about what you're doing before you show up in a situation. You know what I mean? Because one thing that I've learned is that once you get to a situation, most likely once you sit down in that chair, the hardest job of that gig is going to be the first song that you play, right? So say for instance, you thinking, okay, man, I got this. It's funny. I did the show with Ricky Minor. We did a tribute when Clive Davis did that documentary for Netflix. He did a concert in New York, and anyway, so Ricky Minor put together a band with all the artists, and we played for Earth, Wind and Fire, Jennifer Hudson, Aretha Franklin, and all these different people, right? So it's my first time playing with Ricky. I mean, I'd met him in passing, and like every musician, we want to play with Ricky Minor just to have that experience. So anyway, I'm coming in rehearsal, and I'm like super early there and everything like that. So, and meanwhile, like a lot of LA musicians, they audition you, and you can get fired on the first day if you're not. They got cats ready to come in if you're not cutting it. If you coming from the outside world.
Yeah.
So we get in rehearsal, we sound checking. I'm, doing my best. I'm just sitting there, got my horns ready. I'm all warmed up. And anyway, we get to like, I don't know, it might have been like an Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I was like, all right, we're going to work on Earth, Wind, and Fire first. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So we're not going to start with Aretha. We're not going to start with Whitney Houston tribute, something like that. So all of a sudden, he's like, all right, come on, horns, blah, 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 let's play. And then meanwhile, he cuts off he starts stripping down different instruments from the band. Like, all right, no drums.
Yeah.
And just horns. Okay, all right, no bass. And I'm like, we're still playing the parts. He's like, all right, no keyboards. Okay. And he's like, all right, horns by themselves. And then he mentioned something over there, and he's like, turn up the horns. And so in that moment, he's like auditioning me in that moment. I was kind of, developed, but he wanted to hear me before we got through. Then after we finished it, he was like, all right, we good. And then we went to rehearsal, and the rest of the week was fine. So when you show up in situations, you got to be ready for the hardest song, man. If somebody sends you 5 blueses, and then one of the songs is a song in 7, just be prepared to play that song first when you go to the rehearsal. Right. All right. So anyway,
we're getting it live and directed. I know we were talking about this, talking yesterday. a term came up that I want to use here: sidemanology.
Yes, it's a lot in there, and you know, like I said, that's from Christian
Yeah,
to um to being in a house band, Ricky Minor, and then you might have a gig like, you know, Margaret Miller. You know,
yeah.
Margaret was just a warm, soulful person,
Mm-hmm.
and he just liked to be around just kind of warm, soulful people. He just liked just down home people that could
Yeah, yeah,
play. You know what I mean? That was just his thing. He didn't really want nobody catting or trying to be this or that. He just wanted you just think about his bands. People in his
yeah.
band. Kareem Riggins, just a soulful
I
cat.
feel
Like,
like if that comes through his music too,
right.
that essence, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, you pull up to a Margaret Miller gig with a, you know, with a shiny vest on and get on stage with, you out of here. That's not the gig. It's like, let's
Yeah,
be soulful. But with Margaret's gig, which is totally different from playing a house band, Margaret's music is based in the blues as well, but there's
yeah.
an extra level of advanced harmony to his
Mm-hmm.
music.
Yeah,
So you have to understand extensions, and have to understand the level of sophisticated harmony that kind of rests within between the lines of his music.
yeah,
So you have to be harmonically sound as well as sound in the blues. So Margaret was just like a genius of like blues mixed with modern harmony and learn how to kind of have it all together. So those are just different things. But in the end of the day, you know, I've been super fortunate to be able to just work on all these different skills and hopefully
yeah.
be ready for them when anybody calls me to do gigs. And from that, then sitting in Michael Bublé's band playing lead alto, that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
You're playing lead, playing a solo maybe here and there. When I first got called to do the gig with Michael, I was doing my research and I looked online, and you know, they playing sold out arenas everywhere around the world. I'm looking at these clips and I see that there's like a huge alto solo in the middle of the show, right?
Mm.
It's just like strings, you know, just all David Foster strings, beautiful lush hum, just things going on.
Yeah,
And then in the middle of that, there's an alto solo. So I'm like, okay, this might be the most important part of this
yeah,
gig.
yeah.
It's going to be me playing this solo. So let me learn this first, right?
Mm.
So I wasn't really worried about it, but that was one thing that they valued about that gig. They wanted somebody that could play the solo well, because
Yeah,
it's a whole solo in front of, at least on the alto chair. I mean, they could care about, people in the audience could care less about me, but the guys in the
right,
band,
right.
they wanted to make sure that I could, you know, I was able to deal with this solo. So when we get to rehearsal, lo and behold, like, all right, we got everything down. Okay, that solo, you know, you got a solo by yourself. It's like an 8-ball solo, this spotlight solo. Like, oh really?
Yeah,
In front of 20,000 people? I mean, you know, 15,000 people. Okay.
yeah.
So we did that, and I played it, and it was good. It worked out, and from there, I've been working with Michael, and he just wants, you know, he's coming out of the tradition of Frank Sinatra, Sarah
Mm-hmm.
Vaughan,
Yeah,
Joe Williams, all the great, you know, vocalists, you know, singing with big bands and, you know, and different things like that. So he just wants somebody that can play with the amount of energy and
mm-hmm.
also interpret that style of music well. And I always felt like within his shows, he's just looking for sparks from, I mean, you got this guy on stage singing in front of thousands of people every night.
Yeah,
He needs energy from anything he can get from in order to keep him going through the moment. So he's looking from energy. I feel like he's looking from energy from anybody from in the audience to get him going,
mm-hmm.
the band or whatever it may be. So my job playing with him is just to play with the amount of energy, be up there with the team, make sure, you know, I'm doing everything I need to be doing to be playing with a good energy, and just, you know, just on the stage, just supplying the energy so we can make some beautiful music, you know.
That's amazing, Tim. I love hearing those stories on the road, and just like those practical things that a lot of times, if you're not in those spaces, you don't get to see and observe, and just get an idea of like the value system and knowing how to be prepared for a situation
Mm-hmm.
like that. I really love to talk about the idea of interpreting melodies, because you mentioned it earlier in terms of um, you being intentional about playing melodies well,
Right.
something that Mulgrew Miller kind of urged you to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
But before we talk about that, you're talking about some pretty high profile gigs in the industry. And just looking at the people that you've played with, um, there's some people in your bio that I didn't even have an idea that you played with. You know, it's a really, really diverse list of people at the top of their game in the industry, that you've had the opportunity to work with as a sideman. So, you know, people might be listening and wondering, like, how did you get those gigs? You know, like as a
Right.
sideman. I think that's also
Sure.
part of this whole thing of sidemanology. Like, how do you become a sideman? How do you get the call? Or how did you
Okay.
get the call for those gigs?
Okay. So one thing, where can I start? Let me start from like the beginning. Like
Yeah.
once I kind of started playing, the beginning of you starting to get called for gigs is just being a great musician. It's like being a saxophone player, a good saxophone player. It begins with that.
Yeah.
All the fruit will kind of branch and come out of you just being a good saxophone player and learning how to play well on your instrument. Um, so anyway, so people want somebody that they can call that's just willing to go to battle, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm gonna call Tim. We're gonna send him the music. It might be in E flat because I play the alto. It might be in concert. He's not gonna be hemming and hawing at me. Hey man, you got an E flat chart. Hey man, I can't read and see. You know, hey man, where's the music? You know, the gig is, you know, in a week and I need the music last month. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? I'm somebody that I like to think that I'm somebody that you can call for a gig that, look, what we doing? Like, I'm flexible. You know, where are we going? What's happening, you know, in this music. So that's a big part of it, just being super duper flexible,
Yeah.
learning those skills that you need in order to be a side man. Where was it? Where was I got lost in my
That's
in my
okay.
thoughts there.
You were kind of talking about what the question was. How did you get the call? Really?
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, so a story I'll tell, I guess, is about how I started playing with Mulgrew.
Yeah.
I was studying with Jeff Clayton in California
Mhm.
when I was in school there,
Yeah.
and all the LA guys are like super duper business oriented when it comes to music, and I got a lot of understanding about the music business from studying with Jeff Clayton. He told me the story about how he got the gig with Stevie Wonder. He said, "Look, man, I learned all the Stevie Wonder's horn parts." And then I went to the rehearsal where I knew he was going to be, and I played the horn parts for him. He knew that I knew his music. He knew that I was invested enough in him to actually go to his rehearsal.
Right.
Same thing with jazz, man. You want to play with somebody? Learn their music. Go hear them play. With Mulgrew, I learned his music that he had left at the Monk Institute from playing with us at his residency. I learned his music. Once I moved back to Baltimore, me and Warren Wolf and Alan Johnson, we would all play Mulgrew's music. And I just would call him on the phone, send him emails, and actually would send him MP3s of us playing his music. And just imagine that, Jesse, like if somebody took your music and send you a piano player
Yeah.
sent some music, it's like, that's the ultimate, you know, that's a humble feeling, man. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
these guys know my music. If I call them today, they can come and do a gig with me. You know what I mean? Because they already invested in that.
Yeah.
So knowing the people's music that you want to learn, and once that happens, man, your name will just start to get out there. When I got the first call, well, I'll tell you the gig how I got the gig with well, I was coming in subbing for Steve Wilson,
Okay.
and that's why I was
With
mainly doing.
Mulgrew.
With Mulgrew, sometimes we would do quartet gigs,
Okay.
and then I got a chance to play with Wingspan, but with Christian McBride, I was subbing for Steve Wilson.
Okay.
So I had met Christian's manager on a gig with Darren Atwater, and here's this guy, Andre Guest. I kind of knew him at the time,
Yeah.
but Darren told me, said, "Man, that's Christian McBride's manager." And me understanding business, I'm like, that is the key.
Right.
It's his manager right here. So I'm not, I'm just sitting around. I'm like, look, man, if you ever need a sub for Steve, let me know. I would love to sub for him. And then my friend Warren Wolf played in the band too. I was like, look, man, you need a sub, just let me know. So anyway, I get the call. We need you to go to Japan in 2 months, right? So I'm like, wow, Japan, really? Okay, it's no middle. We're not going to Philly to play a Christmas. We going. That's what I'm saying. Again, it's like the most hugest situation that's going to be like first. You're just going to immediately thrown in. It's no like let's warm up to it. It's like, all right, we need you to go to Japan. Here's the visa information. We're leaving in 2 months. Here's the music. You know what I mean? I'm not going to see McBride until the lobby call once we all land. So anyway, so here I go. I'm like, all right, this is my big opportunity. You know what I mean? To play with them. So I'm like, look, man, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the music from the record. I'm just going to learn it all by heart. So I got the music from Warren. I got some of the music from, I think, from Andre. And then I learned all the music by heart, man. And I knew that would be a big thing because, number one, there's so many alto players that would love to have that gig. And I had to make sure that I was going to be at least higher up on the list to be called the sub in again. You know what I mean?
Right.
And at the same time, I understood. I was like, okay, on this gig is going to be Carl Allen, Peter Martin is going to be here. And also my friend Warren, who helped me get the gig, I want to make sure I don't make him look bad. You know, he's the one that helped me get the gig. So if I make him look okay, then we're going to develop a good working relationship. You're going to look, man, I can put my friend on this gig. Yeah. And you know, they say some friends aren't good to work together when it comes to business. It's like, okay, you can be cool, and then we can do business together. We can play music. Yeah. So I did that gig, and then that trickled down to me playing with Carl Allen and his band for a little while. And then I did a gig with Carl. We did some gigs together for a while. And then from that point with Carl, Eric Reed did a week with us at Dizzy's. And then from that gig, I started playing and recording with Eric Reed. So it just started becoming this big snowball thing. Wow. And just kind of going into one thing after the next, one thing after the next. So that kind of started the whole thing. But
so what do you think? So in that whole thread of this gig led to this gig and this call led to this call, what do you think was the one thing that kept that train going?
Was being a great saxophone player and a good musician first, period. That's what it all comes from. Dealing with your instrument and playing and being a great musician, playing saxophone, shedding all the stuff that we talk about. There's no real shortcuts for it. I know that people want to hear that, but once you get a call or opportunity, especially now with all these webcasts going on, different things, you got to be careful with this stuff because people can hear you like it's nothing. You know what I mean? You don't know, like, who knows who's watching, man. Herbie could be checking in who's playing at Smalls. You know what I mean? You never know. Maybe you pick up his laptop and see a link to Smalls, and that's Herbie listening to you play down. You don't know. You know, so you got to be careful now because people are going to be listening to you, and that's the ultimate thing. But being a great musician and letting people know that you want to play with them.
Right. So learn their music.
Yes. Here's the key. Know who you want to play with. Yeah. Learn their music. Yeah. Get in touch with them through their website or their manager. Send them a recording of you playing their music. That is the ultimate resume, or that's the ultimate job interview application, period. Yeah. Boom. You're going to get the call. If you're playing somebody's music and you send it to their manager, you send it to them, you're going to get the call for the gig. I truly believe that.